Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Grudniblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy, and contributor to Yahoo Fantasy. In this podcast, Blake and I are going to give you all the best streamers and options for next week so you can start planning early. Let's hit it. Now, of course, I have your friend and my newly mustachioed friend, Blake Creamer, here with me. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
I'm not crazy. I'm just a little unwell. Oh, God. No, I'm fine. I'm not unwell. Shout out to Robert Thomas. All right. And that's how we do. Nate and I are together on this. I feel fine, man. Yeah, my face is very cold. For those of you not watching on YouTube, I've shaved my beard and now I have a beautiful, greasy mustache. So, yeah, I'm doing a little Movember action. It's November, what is it, 3rd? Oh, God. Yeah, I got to do this all month. My wife is not happy, but yeah, that's how we're doing. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I do want to shout out the Movember efforts from you and Josh and Mark Skinner, one of our patron members. We will make sure that those links are widely distributed, show descriptions, Discord, everywhere, so that everyone can donate and get in on that. It's all for a good cause, and what better way to donate than to look at the faces of these beautiful men while you do it? So definitely get yourself in there. That being said, Blake, let's get right into it. Can you bring us up to speed with some newsies?
We got some newsies. Let's get to biz. All right. We got to talk about right off the hop in tonight's action. Jack Hughes injured. Oh my God.
Oof.
Yeah, this one really hurts. I mean, Nate and I were talking about it offline here. Neither of us have him anywhere in any leagues, but this just sucks. It's just such a bummer. I mean, this guy is awesome. There is Elliot Friedman put a tweet out basically saying they're going to take 1 to 2 days to sort of determine how serious it is. So that show ain't no good. I mean, if it wasn't serious, they would come out and say it's not serious. So I
Feels
think
that way, doesn't it?
yeah. So I think, we're looking at a reasonable absence there from Jack Hughes. So that really sucks. They already have Heischer out. So, guys like Dawson Mercer are going to step up. Eric Halla, these guys are going to get more time, more playing time, right? So, but yeah, just sucks. Not good. Hughes was doing his thing too. He split the D, basically made a beautiful play and then just didn't stop himself at time and slammed into the board. So tough break for Jack Hughes owners. I digress. All right. Also, more injury news. Adam Fox is injured as well. That really sucks. Took a knee-on-knee there from Sebastian Aho. A little bit of a dirty play, in my opinion. I mean, an unnecessary play. I mean, it's not a dirty player, but you didn't have to do that, right? So Fox is going to be out now. They put him on long-term IR. So that means he's going to be out until November 29th at the earliest. So, yeah. What that means is most likely Eric Gustafsson is going to step up and quarterback that first unit there in New York. And that's a huge, huge role. And, Nate, you tweeted something out earlier. I mentioned something as well. I think Eric Gustafsson is a priority ad, and you probably got to get on this, right? We haven't seen a game yet, so there is a little bit of risk there. But I think when you got an opportunity like this staring in the face, you just go pick up the player and you deal with it on the back end, right? If he doesn't get it, you just drop him, and that's kind of where you go. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on Eric Gustafsson real quick there, Nate?
Yeah, man, I think you got to. We saw the proof of concept. I talk about this with a lot of players, but when you get this proof of concept with a guy where he's done it before, and like we had like almost this exact scenario with Eric Gustafsson last year with John Carlson when John Carlson went down for a long time, and Gustafsson was lights out when he was in that role for a number of weeks. He was terrific. So, arguably a better power play here in New York, right? Actually, I don't think it's arguable. It is a better power play than Washington's power play was last year. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about Eric Gustafsson just for all those points. He's not going to be a guy who like skates 25 minutes and gets you a ton otherwise, but definitely he's going to get you some points while he's attached to that power play.
Yep, absolutely. And he's only 9% rostered currently, right? So you got some time, but I'd jump on it if I were you. Okay. Let's move on. Also with New York Rangers, we got to talk about Philip Hedl. He's been placed on the IR as well, so he's going to be out for at least a week. So yeah, that's, he's somewhat fantasy relevant, but yeah, he's going to be out for a week. So there you go. Moving over to Philadelphia, we're looking at Carter Hart and Sean Couturier, both out day to day. To me, that's kind of good news on Hart, is that they haven't ruled him out for longer. I thought that was going to be a bit more of an injury there. So the fact that they're saying day to day is a little bit hopeful for Carter Hart, and not to mention Philly just pumped. Who did they just beat? God, Sabres, right? Yeah, 5-1 Sabres. So, or 5-1 for Philly over the Sabres. So yeah, they're doing okay. They're getting it done there in Philly. So it'll be nice when they get these guys back, though. Sean Couturier especially. Sounds like his injury. He's going to be out on Saturday as well, but that sounds like it's kind of a minor injury, so he should be good to go next week. Okay. Got to mention Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett Dyson. He's on Florida. Head coach Paul Maurice says he's going to be week to week. So we're going to be waiting a little longer for this guy. Terrible luck for Sam Bennett. It's weird because when I think about Sam Bennett, I think about this like beefy Viking. I don't know. Like he just looks like a beefer, and that this guy's glass. He did just stay on the ice, my man. What the hell? So yeah. Anyways, yeah, he's out. That's bad luck. I do want to talk as well about Taylor Hall. Sounds like he's Wolverining it. He's regenerating himself, adamantium and all that. So he's close to returning again. Could be back on Saturday. Probably going to be on a minutes limit. I think they want to take it easy this time so he doesn't have an issue with his shoulder moving forward. Also want to mention that Alex Killorn is close to returning as well. So just keep an eye on his status prior to game time for Anaheim and get him back in your lineups. I think you should have a decent role there in Anaheim. And look at this team he's returning to. Hey, Nate, like what the hell is going on with the Ducks? The mighty Ducks.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going off right now. I don't think it's going to continue for too long, but definitely, like, it's not going to be a bad thing to add Alex Killorn. He was overpaid this summer. We talked about that in the summer, but he's still definitely an above replacement level player, and whenever you can add that to your lineup, that's going to be a good thing. So definitely think he's got some value there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one thing I was just going through some of the news and just some fantasy relevant news that I'd like to just sort of share with you all. Just some power play stuff, actually, just some movement on a couple of power plays here, just giving you an update. So over to Calgary on power play 1, they've made some changes to their first unit. Now it's going to be Nazem Kadri, Huberdeau, Rasmus Anderson, Uyghur is up there, and Elias Lindholm. So that's your power play 1 there in Calgary. That sounds pretty good to me. I mean, they should have Kadri up there. Uyghur is an interesting choice to put up there as well. So they're going with the 2 defensemen. But yeah, what do you think of Calgary's power play there? Do you like that change there, Nate?
I mean, they definitely needed to change something. Yeah. So I like it from that perspective. Uyghur's an interesting choice. Maybe we were a year late on Uyghur. Like we talked about him a lot last year and how disappointing he was to our teams. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, they're searching for anything right now, so we'll see. It'll be a game by game thing. I feel like so. If it doesn't work out next game, you could very well see something totally different the game after. But we'll see.
And they sent that unit, Matt Coronado, down to the AHL. What the hell? No,
well, they don't want to have any good players.
That was the problem? Like, what are they tanking for, Calabrini or Celebrini or whatever the man's name is? Dang. I don't know. But anyways, that's going on power play 1. Just an update for you. Keep an eye on it for game time. Detroit power play is a little bit different as well. Mo Seider was moved to power play 2. So that's going to affect his value for sure. I wasn't expecting Seider on power play 1 this season. Nate and I talked about this a little bit in the projection shows. Like Gostisbehere, that's kind of what they brought him in for. And he's remaining on power play 1. So Raymond is also moving up to power play 1. So it's just keep an eye on Seider. This is going to cap a little bit of his value, right? If he does stay on power play 2. Over to Minnesota as well. This is a really interesting development. We'll talk about this a little later as well. But for power play 1, they're going with 5 forwards. Dang. Who is the lucky boy? It's Marco Rossi. He gets to go up to power play 1, and he's getting line 1 deployment as well with Cap and Matt Boldy. Dang. I mean, that's what we call plum deployment, right, Nate?
Yeah, that's pretty exciting for Rossi. We'll talk about him later for sure, but definitely a really exciting development. I'm not sure that this is going to last. We see a lot of teams experiment with 5 forward power plays, and it never seems to last more than a week or 2 at the most, but definitely exciting in the interim.
Yeah, you get a couple shorties scored on you, and then it's back to basics, right? But yeah, so that 5 forward power play is Rossi, Marcus Johansson, Cap, Matt Boldy, and Eriksson Ek. And then the Zucchini Man gets moved to power play 2. Oh, God, go make some zucchini bread, my man. It's not working out. And his deployment actually was down a little bit last game. It's only one game, but he went from like 20 minutes the game before to 16. So just keep an eye on Matt Zuccarello. I'm with you, Nate. I don't think they're going to keep this going for very long, but, I think the first guy to go back up is going to be Zuccarello, obviously, right? Moving quickly over to St. Louis, the power play of Jakub Vrana was moved up to power play 1, and Kyrou was moved to power play 2. And then what they did tonight is they played what I thought was the power play 2 unit as the power play 1 unit. So, I don't know what's going on in St. Louis for their power play besides the fact that it stinks.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So we don't need to worry about too much there, but Verana's back in play. So, when St. Louis has a good schedule, I think that's a streamer you can look at. And then I do want to just quickly talk about Boston with McAvoy out. I thought it was going to be Lindholm on power play 1, and it looks like it's Kevin Shattenkirk, one of the best names in the game. He's going to quarterback power play 1 there in Boston, and Lindholm's on power play 2. But that's all I got. That's what I got for the news there, Nate. So why don't you get to business with the streaming? That's what you're here for, people, and we got it.
That is absolutely true. Just a quick shout out to Kevin Shattenkirk. If you check out his @ on Twitter, it's Shat Deuces. So shout out to Kevin Shattenkirk.
Leaning into it. I love that.
All right. Let us talk about the schedule here. I'm just going to jump right into it. We got Monday with 4 games. Tuesday has 10 games. Wednesday, 3 games. Thursday, 11 games. Friday, 6 games. Saturday, 12 games. Sunday, 5 games. So this is the first time we really got something to work with here. So I think both Blake and I are pretty excited about this week. 51 total games played. Normal week, I usually say, anything in between 50 and 55 is kind of a normal week. Anything above 55 is more of a heavy week. Anything below 50 or below is probably a light week. So we're kind of into that normal week range here for the first time. We've had some pretty light weeks to start the season, and it's led to some weird schedule things for us. But this is the first time I really feel like we're getting into a mid-season form with the schedule here. So that feels good. Tampa Bay is the only team that has a Monday, Tuesday back-to-back to open the week. So the Monday off night and then the Tuesday 10-game night. Pretty solid chance you might be able to squeeze somebody in there for an early week stream. So definitely take a look at Tampa Bay players for that. Florida and Toronto have the Monday, Wednesday off nights to open the week if you are full on the Tuesday. Then you've got 4 teams, Anaheim, Florida, Minnesota, and San Jose, that have Friday, Sunday off nights to end the week. So you got lots of options, especially we're finally getting a Friday, Sunday that actually have some games here instead of this 2-game nonsense we've been dealing with for the past couple of weeks. So that's great. Definitely got options for the end of the week streams for this upcoming week. And then in the middle of the week, you got Vegas and Washington that have the Wednesday, Friday off nights. So if you got a streamer from last week, if you got Nick Paul on the roster, you want to run him Monday, Tuesday, and then you want to switch over, grab somebody from Vegas or Washington and run them for Wednesday, Friday, and then reevaluate on the weekend. You got lots of options this week is what I'm trying to get at. So overall, much better streaming schedule. You got multiple teams here to get multiple off nights from week-long streams. Very possible. Obviously, still depends on what heavy days you might have some room on, which teams you might be able to pull from to do the week-long streaming. Really what I want to just kind of emphasize here is there's just no excuses this week. Don't have people on your benches. Look through your roster, figure out what you got for these heavy nights, and just get the players off your roster that you need to, and make sure you're maximizing those games played for this week. It is definitely a week that you are able to do that, and in a week that you should be doing that. Give yourself every opportunity to win your week with that. All right. Why don't I toss it back to you, Blake? Why don't you give us the worst teams to stream, or potentially even drop some players from?
Yeah, sure, buddy. But I'm so with you, man. It's week 4. We finally get to actually use some strategy with our streaming.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting actually, because we're just picking up week-long streams and hoping for the best, right? Because it's slim pickings. But like you said, you can pick up so many players. You can almost play really every day of the week, like even a 12-game Saturday. That's not terrible, right? You might be able to get a defenseman in there if you got 4 or 5D on your on your roster, like you might be able to do that. So anyways, let's get into it. These are the worst teams we're looking at here. It's pretty simple. Chicago and the New Jersey Devils. They both have 2 games this week with 1 off night. So I mean, you're basically with Chicago. Obviously, you're holding Bedard and Seth Jones, but that's it, right? You don't need to hold anybody else, Taylor Hall included. Get the hell out of my sight. We don't need this, right? So I think all those guys are pretty droppable. And then for New Jersey, yeah, this is going to be interesting with Jack Hughes out because some players are going to get an increase in role, right? But I don't think it's going to be enough to hold him through a 2-game week when you've got all these other options, right? So just keep
Yeah.
that in mind. But I mean, obviously, we're holding all the major players, right? We're not dropping anybody silly, right? But yeah, guys, like I'm interested. I'm interested just to watch guys like Dawson Mercer, Palat, Eric Holla. What are they going to do, right? And how's even Holtz, right? Just guys that are kind of getting minimized. Mercer's a really weird one. Like the guy's 10 games with 0 points. What the
Yeah.
hell? What's going on with this kid?
Yeah, I honestly don't really know. It's a pretty bizarre situation. You don't want to speculate on injuries or something, but like it's
Hmm.
the first thing that comes to mind because the rest of it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, man. Anyways, so yeah, those are the teams you're looking at, with the worst schedule anyway. It's kind of nice when Chicago's the worst team because you're like, I'm not
Yeah.
rostering anybody anyway, so who cares? Bye. There is 9 teams that play 3 games with 0 off nights, and I want to go through them because there's only 9 of them. So the teams that play 3 games with 0 off nights: Arizona, Colorado, Detroit, Nashville, New York Islanders, Pittsburgh, Seattle, St. Louis, and Winnipeg. Those are your teams that do have 3 games, but they all play on the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, right? So, I mean, it doesn't mean you drop all the fringe guys on those teams. I think for the Tuesday and Thursday, you might be able to get someone in. And like we talked about, you might be able to get someone on the Saturday as well. But just keep that in mind. To me, some interesting teams there. Arizona, right? And I wanted to talk to you about this, Nate. Guys like Barrett Hayton and Logan Cooley. What are we doing with these guys? Are we, and even throw Schmaltz in there, although I know what I'm doing with Schmaltz, but Hayton and Cooley, are we dropping these guys in a 3-game week with 0 off nights with this kind of schedule?
I would be, yeah. I dropped Barrett Hayton already this week
Yep.
after the Monday, Wednesday, or what did they start the week with? Were they Monday, Tuesday? Anyway, I dropped Barrett Hayton. That's what I'm
Yep.
trying to get at there. Um,
Yeah. Monday, Wednesday, they had it.
yeah, so I'm just not that interested in the guys who are not Keller and Schmaltz, basically, and Dersey, obviously, on the back end, you're going to hang on to. Um, yeah, those guys are definitely a tier below for me at this point. Hayton, I tweeted about it a little bit. I was still in on Hayton for a good bit because the underlying numbers were still there. The last 3 games, the underlying numbers have really started to tank. I think maybe it's just a confidence issue at this point. They're still
Yeah.
playing the crap out of them, so I don't think it's like an underlying injury or anything. But um, yeah, it might just be a confidence thing at this point, and he might need to get some sort of reset at some point, get a lucky goal, and then he might start to pick things back up. But I mean, at this point, you just can't bank on it anymore. So I'd let Hayden go. And then Cooley is still like, as of right now, he still hasn't made his way up the lineup at even strength. And so it makes it, you're literally just betting that he can find his way into a power play point. It's going to be really hard for him to produce anything consistently at even strength when he's playing down there with Carconi and Liam O'Brien. So I would definitely drop both those guys.
But definitely hold Jack McBain. Oh, God. Rest of season hold. Book it. Dude, yeah. All right. I love Jack McBain. Don't hold Jack McBain. All right. That's a disclaimer, but I'm going to hold him on every single team just because I love the name. All right. That's how I play fantasy. All right. Let's move on. Okay. And you're keeping Schmaltz, by the way. We have to keep Schmaltz.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to talk about Philadelphia as well. They have 3 games with 1 off night, but I did just want to mention, like, they were the best streaming team here last week. So you're dropping all those fringe guys, right? Like Scott Lawton, bye. Right. Bobby Brink, thank you for your service. Thank you. Get off my team. Even Atkinson. I don't think I'm holding Atkinson for this 3-game week. I don't think I don't know. I wasn't super impressed. I mean, I think he got a goal, so that's nice. But yeah, he's off my team. Anybody else? I don't know. What are you doing with your Philly guys? Anyone you'd hold for the 3-game one off night there, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, Atkinson's underlying numbers are fine. They're not like breaking the bank. He's obviously like last 5 games, he's got 5 points, so he's still doing that. Um, it kind of depends for me. Like if you can get Atkinson in for the Tuesday game against the Sharks, then maybe you want to do that just because
Yeah,
the
yeah, that
Sharks
makes sense.
are historically bad so far. And then they play the Ducks on the Friday off night. So like you could be looking at a situation where it would make sense to hang on. But that's going to be kind of just on a team by team basis rather than, a unilateral, you got to hold them or you got to drop them kind of situation.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, those are the teams I just wanted to mention about, the worst teams and potential drops that you're looking at. All right. And don't drop just because we say or don't say, right? You got to do what makes sense for you and your team. All right. Hit us up with questions. We'll help you on an individual basis. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about the best team to stream for the cream. All right. And just try growing up with the last name Creamer. It's not awesome. All right? It's really not awesome, right? Because,
It's
in
probably not
elementary,
awesome when you talk about it that way either.
yeah, if I say it in the creepy voice with this mustache, yeah, that's not good for anybody. But yeah, in elementary school, it's like, oh, Creamer. Oh, you're like coffee creamer. And then in high school, it's like
Yeah,
Creamer.
it goes to
Yeah,
a different level in high school,
oh
doesn't it?
gosh, yeah. I'm just getting it from all sides, but I'm leaning into it. I love this name. It's the cream team to stream. Let's get to biz. Okay, I digressed. All right. So we have this week in week 4, we have a perfect streaming team, and we love to see it. Unfortunately, they have the world's crappiest streamers. Well, not really. Yeah, there's worse, but yeah, it's Florida. The Florida Panthers play 4 games, and they're all on the off nights. You love to see it. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So that's excellent. So you can do a week-long stream, just pump one of these guys in and just one move, 4 games, book it. That's a nice week-long stream, right? The problem is like some of the streamers there, right? I think you're looking at as kind of your top guy, probably OEL, right? Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He's still getting power play 1. And he, I thought he was going to be out for a little bit. Like I talked about on the cream exchange, the cream of the crop,
Mhm.
about picking up Gustav Forsling because I thought there was going to be some concussion issues with Ekman-Larsson, and it just didn't happen. So that's good news for him. Not so great for Forsling, right? But OEL, he's rostered at 16%, and he's a viable player, right? He hasn't really popped here, only 3 points in 9 games, right? But he's out there, 67% power play share with Florida, right? And I think they're underachieving there. So like Matt Tkachuk too, he's not scoring. Like this, once these guys start putting the puck in the net, like this is going to be a good week for Ekman-Larsson. I think you can probably get like 3 to 4 points out of this guy this week. So I think that's a good option there. I know, Nate, why don't you talk about Anton Lundell a little bit because he's out there as well. He's 3% rostered. What do you think about Lundell this week?
Yeah, I like Lundell a little bit, mostly just off the back of his even strength deployment. Right now, he's playing with Verhaeghe and Tkachuk, and that's a spot that I'm just
Yeah.
always going to be interested in someone playing with those two guys. You can see it a little bit. He had a nice game the other night. You can see it a little bit in his underlying numbers the last little bit, but yeah, basically, if you're looking to a forward from Florida for this week, somebody to get you some points upside, it's got to be Lundell. He has 5 shots in both of his last couple of games here, so you like to see that. He got a goal in the last game, up over 17 minutes, both of those games. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a trend up here for Lundell, and as long as he keeps that deployment, you're going to be happy with it. So if you really need the off nights, like if you got a team that's full of players that are playing on heavy nights and you really need off nights, then I think Lundell is probably going to be a priority for you for your ads for the upcoming week.
Yeah, and just keep that in mind as well. It's like, yeah, we're saying this team has the best streaming schedule, but it doesn't mean like that's your first team that you go to pick a player, right? Like with this type of week, you can get players in on almost every day, right? So you don't have to do a week-long stream here. Like we're not saying like OEL is the best option, go get him or go get Lundell, right? Because to me personally, there are some options that might be a little better that might make more sense for your team depending on your roster. So full disclaimer there, but yeah, I like what you had to say about Lundell. I like the 2 5-shot games there. That's really nice. Be nice if they got him on the power play at some point, but don't see that happening anytime soon. We should probably talk about Eetu Luostarinen as well. He's in the mix, right? 2% rostered. Damn. The thing about Lundell and Luostarinen, like, shoot the puck, boys. Like when you got shots on goal per game of under 2, like it's just you're basically just throwing a dart at a dartboard and hoping that the player you get like hits for some reason, right? And I'm not really big on either player. Lundell definitely more than Lewis Starnin, right? Because of especially like you said, he's trending upwards, right? And his deployment at even strength is a really nice spot to be. But I don't know. Any thoughts on Lewis Starnin there, Nate?
Yeah, I threw him in here just because there might be some people who are like, I literally can't fit anybody else into my lineup. I need a week-long stream. Lundell's already gone. It's a deep league. Um,
Yep.
Luosterainen is the next guy up for me after that, just on the back of the fact that he actually does get minutes, unlike pretty much everybody else in the bottom six for Florida. So that's why he's in there. But he's been pretty cold. He has 1 point in 9 games to start the season, so it's definitely a long shot if you're going there.
Is that how you say his name? Luostarn? What did? Oh
I
God.
honestly don't know. I blacked out
No.
when I said
Yeah.
it. So
You know what? You said it so confidently that now,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry to call you on that. I should have just let it go. But yeah, that's fine. We'll figure it out on the back end. All right.
we will.
We'll put a link to the dictionary, like, when you
Same with
click the, yeah. What do you
same with
got?
Ruzicka.
Yeah. 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 Whenever
Ruzicka.
you say Lewis Starden's name, you just have to put your hand in front of your mouth, like Lewis Starden. And that's how it is.
Luosterainen.
Yeah. Lewis Starden.
All right.
Yeah, we lost it there. That's fine. Okay, so Lewis Garden is there. And I should mention, if someone dropped Forsling, I think you got to pick him up for this week. Forsling's a must add for this week. He's over 50%, so we're not really talking about him. But yeah, I still believe in this player to some degree, but his shots have been cut in half. Like he's a big time shot producer from the back end last year. This year, not so much, right? So yeah, you have to have him for this week.
Yeah, I definitely actually do agree with that. He was dropped in a few spots, and I did pick him up actually in a couple spots
I
in a
saw
couple of
that.
my leagues. Basically, just looking ahead to this week, he has 2 or 3 shots in each of his last 4 games, so it has trended
Nice.
up a little bit. He does block. He plays a ton of minutes. Like you can definitely do worse on a team like Florida with a great schedule if you need a defenseman streamer for the week.
Yep, pick them up. All right, let's move on. So after Florida, we're looking at another really good streaming team. It's the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right, Nate knows a little something about these boys. All right, they play 4 games and they have 3 off nights. So yeah, what does Toronto play actually? Yeah, so again, they're Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then they play on the Saturday. Which again, you might be able to get somebody in there. I don't know, but you could definitely pick them up for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then stream somebody in for the Sunday or however you want to do it, right? There's lots of different options there. But let's look at some of the players on Toronto that you can grab. All right. And the first one is the Klingon, John Klingberg. All right. Your son Rip is on line toot. All right. John Klingberg, he's still power play 1. He's only 42% rostered. So this is a no-brainer. Klingberg's got to be rostered for this week. I don't see why, like, it hasn't been a great start, honestly, for Klingberg. Like, what does he have? Like 5 assists or 4 assists or something like that in his first few games. Like, it's not what you would think a player quarterbacking power play 1 there. Yeah, 5 assists in 10 games and 2 on the power play. So, but yeah, you got to pick him up. Like, I don't know what's the message there. What's it been like having John Klingberg on your team there, Nate? What are the first results here?
I had said this in the offseason, but we could have had Shane Gostisbehere and we chose John Klingberg, and that was absolutely the worst decision we made this offseason. He was. I watched the game the other night. He was directly responsible for how bad the Leafs power play was in a couple of spots. They had an opportunity to go up on the Bruins late in the game, and he was just like giving pucks away for no reason. And it looked pretty bad, to be honest. And they have put Riley back on power play 1 just a couple of different opportunities in the last week here. So I'm very, very worried about Klingberg. Like, I think you're right. He should be rostered, but I'm kind of like hoping somebody else is going to do that for me because
Yeah, totally.
I really don't want to be the guy stuck with John Klingberg power play 2. And now he does absolutely nothing for my team for the week.
Yeah, John Klingberg power play 2 becomes Eric Gustafson last year with the Leafs, right? It's just like
Yeah,
nothing doing at
exactly.
all, right? So, and buddy, this man's a millionaire. What, like, fix your teeth? What, John Klingberg? He doesn't put his bridge in. You've got to get that bridge in there for picture day, John. All right,
It's intimidating. I think
it's
that's what it is.
Yeah, except the look on his face. I don't know. I'm looking at Frozen Tools right now. If you're interested in what I'm talking about, go check out Dauber Frozen Tools and look up John Klingberg. That's the picture you want to see. When you're skating down and there's a defenseman in front of you, you just push that man aside and you get the business. All right, but that's enough talking about John Klingberg. That's probably all we'll talk about him this season. All right, but yeah, he should be owned in my opinion. What actually something interesting about the Leafs power play? It looks like they've been really efficient, but something I've been looking into a little bit more is how much actual power play time on ice teams are getting. And the Leafs have the 7th lowest power play time on ice in the league. Like they're drawing the 7th least, or they're just having the 7th lowest time on ice. So, that's just an interesting development. So, when you look at a guy like John Klingberg, who's had power play 1 for most of the season, it's like, why is he not doing better? It's like, well, it's. I think it makes a difference a little bit. Like they're not on the power play as much as other teams like Ottawa, who is leading the league again this year in actual power play minutes that they have in the game. It's just an interesting thing. Is that something you ever look at, Nate?
I've never really looked at the overall minutes. Usually, I tend to think these things balance out, but Toronto is one of the worst teams in the league at drawing penalties year after year. You can get into the half-baked conspiracy theories about why that might be the case, but it's just consistently true that the Leafs are bottom third team in drawing penalties year after year.
Yeah, there you go. Anywho, digressing, let's talk about some of the wingers that you can get on this team. We're looking at, I was going to say Ty, Max Domi, Ty Domi, Todd Bertuzzi, and no, that's how we're going. Max Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Cal Yarncroc, and then Matthew Nyes, right? That's how you say his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, of those 4, what do you think, Nate? Who are you looking at of Domi, Bertuzzi, Nyes, and Yarncroc? What's kind of the order you're looking at streaming?
I've been going back and forth on this a lot. It's really up in the air in my opinion because Bertuzzi has been getting, so it's been Yarncroc up there with Matthews and Marner. It's been Bertuzzi with Tavares and Nylander, and it's been Nyes and Domi on the third line with David Kampf. So Bertuzzi has gotten himself benched in the third period of both of the last 2 games, which is
crazy.
not a good look. He's not been producing. He's not been doing much of anything while he's been out there. Apparently, he's been nursing an injury. Maybe that has something to do with it, but clearly that can't be the only thing going on. Like Sheldon Keefe is not a guy who just goes out and benches people. Like he very, very rarely does that. He did it with Nylander a couple of times a little bit earlier on in his career, but like if he's doing that, then he really does not think well of what you're doing on the ice at the moment. He's not a guy who usually resorts to that. So all that to say, I would normally have said Tyler Bertuzzi in this spot, but right now I'm feeling much less confident in that take. Just based on the fact that he seems to be getting less deployment, and there's some pretty bad vibes around his play right now. Nyes and Domi do not have great underlying stats, but they're playing on that third line with a black hole at center and David Kampf, so there's a little bit of that, like what might happen if Bertuzzi is the guy who like gets bumped down the lineup now. I mean, Yarncroc is by no means a staple on the top line either. Like if you told me tomorrow that Nyes was going to play all of next week on the Matthews Marner line, like he's immediately the top guy, right? So there's a little bit of that. If you have the option to wait through the weekend here and kind of see what's going to develop, get a little bit more information. They obviously have the game on Saturday against Buffalo. Maybe some lines get shifted around there and you get a little bit more information. I would kind of just go with whoever has the best deployment probably in the end of things. It's really tough. I have flip-flopped the way that I have these guys in the rankings, which we'll get into, but I've flip-flopped it a few different times, and I'm really not sure where I'm going to end up by the end of the week.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. Like homework game. Just watch the game on Saturday, see the kind of deployment. Let's take a look at the Corsi for the scoring chances and the shots. Like who's balling out the most, right? Because I think it's kind of a crapshoot, right? I think common sense dictates to probably go Bertuzzi, Domi, Nyes, Yarncroc, but it's weird. Like Yarncroc's on the top line and second power play. Like I don't know. It's kind of a crapshoot. So let's watch that game on Saturday to really kind of figure it out there. But I think you could pick up any one of those guys, and they're probably all in the same tier, most likely. With Bertuzzi, maybe if he's getting more ice time, like he has better metrics. So that's that's what we want to see. But yeah, if he's getting benched, it's like the lowest point to pick this man up. So that's showing no good. All right, let's go. There are 5 teams that we want to talk about that have 4 games and 2 off nights, right? So these are all viable teams for you this week, right? So, and there's lots of good streamers on these teams. So let's check it out. We're talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Dallas Stars, Minnesota Wild, the San Jose Sharks, and your Vancouver Canucks, the 10-1 winners of one of the worst drubbings I've ever seen in my life. Oh, man. I love the Canucks. I actually felt bad for San Jose the other night. Did you see that like little girl that had a sign that's like, "This is my first Sharks game," and like the face was just dead inside. Like, oh, that's terrible. Anyways, let's move on. Let's talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. Obviously, I got a lot of love for some of these streamers here, and there's some good ones, right? You got Boone Jenner, who's 49% rostered. We have to mention him, right? If he's out there, I think you got to grab him. You have to grab him for this week. Adam Fantilli as well, 30% rostered. And I was looking up the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Fantilli's showing out in his shots on goal per 60 as well. I actually didn't really know that. So yeah, when I dug in on the Blue Jackets a little bit, he's second on the team, I think. He's first on the team over Boone Jenner, Adam Fantilli. I love that, right? They're both power play 1. So I think they're both good options, and he's more readily available. So take a look there. And then Provorov as well. This was a big surprise. The man has 8 assists. How is this happening? That happened very quietly. I wasn't aware that Provorov was like actually racking up points because he's such a plug. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on some of those Columbus boys? Because there's a couple other guys there as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit all over. So Fantilli's metrics look good. In the last game, he only skated 11:42.
Yeah.
Which is pretty concerning. Obviously, that's not what you want to see. So maybe another little bit of a homework game against Washington here on Saturday to make sure that he's gonna get some more deployment. But yeah, like the metrics look terrific with Fantilli. He's trending towards becoming a star, in my opinion, already.
Love that.
Yeah, definitely agree. If Jenner's out there, he's a priority because he should be rostered and held in almost every league, in my opinion. So definitely go out and do that. And then the other guy in Columbus that I'm particularly excited about is Kirill Marchenko. I know he's sitting in the press box for multiple games, which gives you no confidence whatsoever that he's actually going to play. So, do what you will with that. But man, every time the guy's on the ice, he's generating stuff, and he went straight to the top power play. It was actually Fantilli was on power play 2, and Marchenko went to power play 1 along with Jack Roslovic in the last game. So keep your eyes peeled for deployment and all that, but you can definitely do worse than Marchenko. The one thing with Columbus, though, is that schedule, like they have the Monday off night and the Sunday off night. So the off nights they have are on the opposite ends of the week. And if you can't get these guys in for the Thursday, Saturday heavy nights, either one, then probably you're not actually that interested in a Columbus streamer for this week. So definitely a team, if you're looking to stream one of these guys, you got to look and see if they're actually going to crack your lineup on one of those heavy nights. If they crack on one of the heavy nights, then definitely they're a great week-long stream. But if they don't crack it for either, then you're looking at 2 games that are 5 days apart. You probably got a better way to use your ads for the week than to go to these guys.
Yep, that's a really good point. And something Nate and I were talking about just a little bit before we started the show is because this is an actual strategic streaming week, we should look at the opponents that these teams play, right? Like when it's so black and white and there's like 2 games on a day, it's like you just get the players that are playing on those days. It doesn't matter, right? But to that point, I mean, Columbus is playing some pretty good teams, right? They're playing Florida, Dallas, Detroit, and the Rangers, right? That's who Columbus is playing, right? That's a killer's row. So, I mean, just something to think about. You got to put those things in the back of your mind when you're doing this, right? I did also want to mention Damon Severson as well. It looked like he spent like maybe 1 power play out on power play 1 with Zach Werenski. So they were going 2D there. So again, just a homework game. Take a look at their game on Saturday and see if they do it again. Because if they do, then I think Severson is interesting, right? He's viable. if he's going to get those kind of minutes, because he's a player that can actually put up some points from the back end. So something to look at there, Damon Severson. So let's move on to the next team, Dallas, right? The good thing about Dallas is if you grab some Dallas players from last week, you can just roll them right into this week, all right? Because Dallas had a decent schedule before, and again, they got a good schedule here. It's the Monday, Thursday, and then they have the back-to-back on Saturday, Sunday. So let's look at these. You got Duchesne. Was that Duchesne again? I think it was. Matt Duchesne is there, or as Binksy says, Duchesne, and that's fine. Either works. Okay. So Matt Duchesne is there. Tyler Seguin, Wyatt Johnston is actually someone I'm pretty interested in if I'm going Dallas. That's probably the guy that I'm going with more than the others. And then you got Mason Marchman as well. He's only 3% roster and he's not getting amazing deployment, but the metrics are decent. What say you about these Dallas players, Nate?
I'm actually a little bit into Duchesne right now. Underlying metrics are ticking up a little bit. His line, the Seguin Duchesne Marchment line in the last game, got the second most time on ice at even strength for whatever that's worth. Just a couple things trending up for Duchesne overall. 54th in shot attempts per 60 last 5 games, 39th in individual scoring chances for last 5 games. And he's got 5 points in 5 games, so he's feeling it a little bit at the moment. But yeah, again, like you mentioned, same schedule exactly as Columbus, so you got to really look and see if these guys are actually going to be cracking your lineup for the week.
Sweet. Cool. Let's move on to Minnesota as well. Minnesota doesn't have very good streamers. Let's be real about that. But they have one really good streamer, in my opinion, and we got to talk about it. All right. So we're looking at how about Marcus Foligno? Oh man, this guy has a beautiful head of hair, and he's an extreme beefer with cheese. I've got him in a full bangers league. I love this man. He just gets the biz on the regular, so he's there, especially in category leagues. He can actually do something for you. Jared Spurgeon as well is on this list. I don't know. What have you heard about Jared Spurgeon, Nate? Is he pretty close, or what's the situation there?
Yeah, so maybe we should have thrown it in the news and notes,
Yeah,
but
I
he is
wasn't.
close. Yeah, he is close. So there is a chance that he was actually going to play this week yet on Saturday here against the Rangers. They haven't ruled that out, I guess, yet. I would characterize that probably as a long shot, but it sounds like trending towards playing potentially all of next week at this point. So you got to still keep your eyes open and figure out exactly what they're going to do. But that would be, if I had to make a wager right now, I'd say that he's in for Tuesday.
Love that. Okay. So yeah, you got to keep your eyes out for Jared Spurgeon because, we talked about they're doing a 5-forward power play there in Minnesota, and that show is never any good. I mean, no one has ever ran a whole season with 5 forwards on the power play and been successful, right? So I think this is a little bit, just kind of something they're trying out. But also, Kalen Addison is being faded lots of times. His minutes are all over the shop, and I think when Spurgeon comes back, I think power play 1 is probably going to be where he lands, right? That would not surprise me at all. And that's a great power play in Minnesota. So that's why we're talking about Jared Spurgeon right now. Okay. This guy could be a low-key source of goals as well. So keep that in mind. Take a look and see if he's out there. If you have IR Plus and you can add a guy directly to your IR, that is money in the bank. So if you can do that with Jared Spurgeon, pick him up and, have a Coke and a smile. Love that. Let's move on. We're talking about Marcus Johansson as well. He's 5% rostered. I love me some Marcus Johansson. He's still on power play 1, 5% rostered. No respect for this man. All right, he's putting up some reasonable stats with some of the worst underlying metrics you've ever seen. And then we have to talk about Marco Rossi. This is a guy that I think you should be interested in, and this might be a situation where you have to pick this guy up now, kind of like the Eric Gustafson situation. Like pick him up now and then just figure it out on the back end. If they aren't playing him or he's getting limited in the games, like then you just drop him, right? But with a great schedule this week, and he's playing right now, he's scheduled. These are game day tweets we're talking about, but he's taking reps on line 1 and power play 1, and he played 20 minutes last game. And just for fun, I mean, he's got the highest shots on goal per 60 on the Minnesota Wild. That's that's a little unexpected. I mean, granted, in limited ice time, right? So that kind of boosts those numbers sometimes. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on Marco Rossi, and how interested should we be here, Nate?
I'm fairly interested. Yeah, I think it's a good spot to be, and Minnesota does have a better schedule, if you can call it that. It's the same schedule in terms of the off nights, but it's a different schedule in terms of when those off nights occur. So they have their two heavy nights are the Tuesday, Thursday. Tuesday is the lightest of the heavy nights, so there's a better chance that you're going to get them in for that game. And then they have the Friday, Sunday end of the week, which is always nice to avoid
Love it.
the heavy Saturday. And yeah, I mean, they've got the Islanders for Tuesday, so if you are getting them in there, the Islanders right now are the third worst team in the league in terms of Corsi against at even strength. So you figure he's
Oh,
going to get some shots there, get some chances at the very least. So you like that. And with Rossi, like I think most people know, former top 10 overall pick in his draft year, had, yeah, just kind of a circuitous route, had a really bad bout of COVID, long COVID. Just, yeah, took a really long time to get on track, kind of missed a whole year of development. And then is finally kind of starting to seemingly come into his own here, has 5 points in his last 5 games here. And obviously, if he's going to play with guys like Kaprizov and Boldy on the regular, then that's something that we're all going to be all about, because we have a lot of respect for the talent of Kaprizov and Boldy here on the Apples and Junos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. So, yeah, Rossi is definitely somebody I'm interested in. I'm trying to handicap how much I think that this deployment is going to last. I
mhm.
think it's still pretty up in the air. They're searching for something. He's providing it at the moment. As soon as he doesn't, they'll probably go another direction. So, you got to kind of take that for what it's worth. But in terms of like, if he has a terrific week this week, like if he goes off for 5 points in 4 games this week, then he's a guy who's going to be sticking in your lineup for the foreseeable future. So, that kind of player is something that you should legitimately get excited about, and you should go out and add with priority, in my opinion. So Marco Rossi, definitely a guy that I'm interested in.
Book it. That's how we do. All right, get yourself some Marco Rossi and do it now. All right, let's move on. We can slam through these next ones here. San Jose Sharks. How about nobody? I mean, if you really want to get froggy, go pick up Thomas the Turtle Hurdle. If you're looking for donuts across the board, San Jose is one of the worst teams I've ever seen play hockey, and it sucks. They're good guys. I like Thomas Hurdle. This is just not a good environment for players to play in. But yeah, Hurdle's out there. He's 38% rostered. He's getting a ton of deployment. Power play one, but nothing is going in. It's crazy. The San Jose Sharks have 10 goals in their season. The Canucks scored 10 the other night. This, oh God, that's terrible. So anyways, we don't need to go too much longer on San Jose. Yeah, Thomas, the Turtle Hurdle is there. So go pick him up if you're looking at San Jose. And then the last team, Vancouver, they've got a decent schedule here as well. What the heck do they play? Yeah, they're playing the Monday, then Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, right? So there's not too many good streamers on this team. Obviously, everybody's rostered. But if I was to pick up a Vancouver Canuck, I think I'd be looking at Ilya Mikheyev. I like what I've seen from this player. His metrics are outstanding in limited time, and he passes the eye test as well. This guy can skate, right? He can skate, and he shoots a lot, and he's getting a ton of scoring chances. So, and he's getting some power play 2 looks, and he's playing with Pedersen and Big Cozy. So that's a nice place to be. So I like Mikheyev, and then Anthony Beauvillier is a deep league option as well. He's 4% rostered. Got a couple goals the other night. It's 500th game, and he's a very handsome man as well. So I mean, we can agree on that. I don't know. Any thoughts on Vancouver there, Nate?
I will not be offering my thoughts on how handsome the men are there, but
Well,
I
what?
do think
Come
that
on.
Mikheyev is definitely rosterable in a deeper format for sure. Definitely a guy who shows out in the metrics, but is never truly efficient with them. But all it takes is you would at least prefer that he have the metrics there, and then hopefully he gets lucky in the week that
Yeah.
you pick him up for the stream and he gets a couple in, rather than not have the metrics and you're really just hoping to get extremely lucky. So Mikheyev creates some of that luck for himself for sure. So definitely think if you need a guy from Vancouver, Mikheyev's the guy to go with.
Yep, love that. And then lastly, we'll go through two teams real quick here. Anaheim Ducks. And what is a duck? And the Washington Capitals. All right, 3 games played, 2 off nights. So these are going to be options for you for streams as well. Let's just rip through Anaheim here. They're actually, Anaheim's a bit of a tough stream for the first half of the week because they only play Tuesday and then they play Friday, Sunday. So you're probably looking at, picking them up in the back half of the week, get them for that Friday, Sunday. But I mean, you probably have some of these guys, right? They're crazy hot right now. Frank Vetrano is like 82% owned in Yahoo. I mean, I'm not saying he shouldn't be, but wow, that is quite a development there. So guys like Mason McTavish, I mean, these guys are popping off it. But let's look at some of the streamers there. Cam Fowler, 43% rostered. I think is a reasonable ad if you're going to go the Ducks. Ryan Strome as well. He was out the last game there, but he's still there, 39%. I'm not really big on Ryan Strome. I think it's like a flash in the pan. He's just got, I said this on the Cream Exchange as well. Just, he's getting lightning in a bottle. His line, right, that the metrics don't really back up, especially with Ryan Strome, like what he's doing. So I expect that to sort of fall off. And then what about Mintyukov, though? That's a player I am definitely excited about. He's 34% rostered and he looks good and he's getting all the deployment and he's getting big minutes too, like at the end of games. So that's always what I like to see, especially with a young rear guard like this. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Mintyukov and even, Leo Carlson for this week?
Yeah, so Minchikov is definitely a guy that we've been touting here since last week. Hopefully, you got in early and you got some of those points he's been putting up this week. So, definitely a guy that we like. 27th amongst all defensemen in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 in the last 5 games here for Minchikov. Still averaging under 19 minutes the last 5 games. So, deployment could be better, but I mean, for what he is, a very young defenseman just entering the league, he looks
Yeah.
very impressive.
Yep.
And I think he's really made an impression still on the top power play there. Yeah, I think Minchikov is definitely that dude at the moment. And he fills out the banger cats too, which is
Yep.
something you love to see. So has peripheral value even when he's not filling the score sheet.
Love that. And then anything on Leo Carlson, like he's out there and he did play 3 games in a row. Yay. Right. Thank you, Leo Carlson, for your service. What are your thoughts there? Is anyone taking a ride? Should we take a ride with Leo Carlson?
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's playing himself into a little bit more time here. Like 3 games in a row. I've heard the theory that he's going to sit on the Sunday game that they have upcoming here. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he's just playing so well that they can't really put him
Yeah.
on the in the press box anymore. So it's something I'm monitoring for sure because if he does make him get himself into this game on Sunday, then I think that's a pretty clear indication that they think he's just too good to leave in the press box. So that's just a guy that I want to watch and see what they're doing.
Yeah, they probably didn't expect to have a winning record at this point of the season either, right? And like basically caving in teams, like what's happening? I don't understand. Frank Vetrano, like, yeah, this is the guy's most underrated player of the season so far. All right, and we got to talk about Washington quickly as well. Washington, they're in a similar boat to Anaheim. They only play Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday, right? So, yeah, but you're going to have some options there, and there are some decent streamers there on Washington. You're looking at Dylan Strome, he's 31% rostered on Yahoo, and then I still like Yevgeny Kuznetsov, just because of the deployment he's getting yeah, the minutes he's getting with good players. And then you can, if you're in deeper leagues, you can get Rasmus Sandin, and then TJ Oshie is out there as well, who's moonlighting on power play 1. So yeah, any thoughts on the Washington guys, Nate? Because you're liking Washington these days a little bit.
Yeah, Washington's underlying metrics have come up in a big way the last little bit as a team, and so I'm a little bit more bullish on them than I have been for sure. Like Dylan Strome, if you look at his on ice numbers, fourth in the league in Corsi 4 per 60, fifth in scoring chances 4 per 60 in his last 5 games. Those are good numbers. That's what you want to
Sheesh.
see. He's still not shooting a ton, but he's been scoring a ton. So there is that. And then Kuznetsov is just getting all the minutes all the time, nearly 24 minutes a game his last 5 games. So definitely think you can do worse than those two guys if you need a stream for this week. Like I mentioned, yeah, if you got like a Tampa Bay that goes Monday, Tuesday, and then you get into a Wednesday, Friday situation with Strome or Kuznetsov, that's a pretty good setup for your week if you want to do that.
Yep, love it. Well, that's it. Those are your best streaming teams. Definitely, this show sheet is going to be out there for Nate's Patreon and everything. So if you need to see a copy of this, that's out there. Nate, why don't you tell us the ranked versions of all your best players to stream? Let's get to biz.
Yeah, so I do this caveat every week, but basically I have to assume, for the purposes of ranking these players, that you can only get in the players on the off nights. If you can get in the players on some of the heavier nights, then that would change these rankings, and I'll talk about that as I go through it. But I do have Lundell as the top streamer for this week. As long as he's with Tkachuk, I think that he's just going to be basically handed points even if he doesn't
Yep.
play that well, and he has legitimately played well, as I mentioned, the last couple of games here. So I do like Anton Lundell quite a bit for this week. If you need the off nights, then I do think Lundell is that dude. And then I have the three guys from Toronto who have the three off nights this week as kind of the next tier.
Mhm.
And that right now I have it as Matthew Nyes at the top, and then Max Domi, and then Tyler Bertuzzi. I'm pretty scared off of Bertuzzi right now. I don't know what's going to happen next week, but I'm just very kind of reticent about that situation. I think I kind of said my piece there, but right now I do have
Yep.
Nyes at the top because I think that he's at least the most exciting option, the one that you would actually get legitimately excited about. Like even if Domi went to the top line with Matthews and Marner, sure, I'd pick him up over Nyes, but I would be much less excited about it because there's just that untapped potential that we don't know what we haven't seen yet with Nyes.
Right.
And I actually think he would be kind of a good complement on that line, just from a stylistic point of view. So those are the next three guys there. Then I get into the teams with the 4 games and 2 off nights. Boone Jenner has to top this list if he is still available. Him and Rossi both here, and actually Matt Duchene and Wyatt Johnson all the way down there as my next in order here. If those guys get into the same amount of games as the Toronto streamers for you, then I'd have all these guys above the Toronto streamers personally. So Jenner, then I have Rossi, then I have Matt Duchene, then I have Wyatt Johnston. So that's the way I have it currently. And I do have Adam Fantilli here because I do think he has tremendous upside. Like I said, the ice time in the last game was pretty concerning, so go check that out before you go out and make that ad. And then I did want to throw Marchenko in at the bottom just because I have a lot of love for the player.
Yeah.
Obviously concerning that he's being put in the press box, but as long as he's like, he came back and they put him right on power play 1. So make of that what you will. If he has another good game, maybe maybe he has a big game here on Saturday, and then you feel pretty confident about him for next week. In terms of the metrics, this guy crushes all the metrics that we love here at Apples and Ginos, so I wanted to make sure I included him on this list. Blake, why don't you tell me where I'm wrong on this list?
I don't think I can, buddy. You know what? You explained it properly, I think. Yeah, like I would put some of these guys up above the Toronto guys, but we're talking about guys, games that can actually be played, like guys you can actually get in for games. So this list makes total sense. I mean, Boone Jenner should be number 1, but that's fine. Everything else makes a ton of sense. So nice work, Nate.
All right. Yeah, I'll run through just the hits and block streamers that we have for this week. So Ryan Reeves, obviously, if you need some hits, he does that. And then Marcus Foligno, one less off night for Foligno, which is why he's below Reeves there. Brandon Duhaime from Minnesota as well. Kyle Burrows from San Jose. And Dmitry Kulikov is a solid option, if not spectacular, from Florida. Then for blocks, you got TJ Brody from Toronto, who's been blocking even more than ever before this year. Been doing a ton of that and getting a ton of minutes with the injuries that the Leafs have on their blue line right now. So good option there. Nico Mikkola and Mark Giordano, Dmitry Kulikov, and then Eric Goodbranson going over to Columbus. I'll keep rolling right here, and we'll talk about best players to add for the future. Long-term plays, a few of these guys are right below the 50% cutoff. Maybe we look at reducing that cutoff in the future because a lot of active leagues, you're not going to be able to get these guys anyway. But right now I have it Boone Jenner, number 1 at 49% roster. Number 2, Nick Schmaltz, 37%. Josh Norris and Pavel Zacha at 48%. And Zacha actually bumped up to 50% right before this, so we got that in there. Robert Thomas rounding out the list there at 25%. And then I'll throw in the sub 20 and sub 10% roster guys I'm into. Leo Carlson, as I mentioned, I'm wondering if this might just be a situation in which he is playing himself into a full-time role, regardless of what they said they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So double check that. If that's true, then I would consider Carlson to be an interesting ad because every time he's been on the ice, he's been there with Terry and Zegras on the top line, getting tons of minutes. So like to see that. Sub 10% rostered will be Marchenko here. I just think he has the most upside, the most likely guy to stick in your lineup long term from this group that's sub 10% rostered. Yes, you have to get a couple of bounces to go his way. You have to have the coach to like him and like what he's contributing. But I do think Marchenko has legitimate 30 goal upside and 60-point upside in Columbus if he can stick with yeah, playing alongside Gaudreau, power play one. If he can do all those things, he's got the most upside from pretty much anybody in that kind of rostership range. What do you say, Blake? What do you like or not like about this list?
Oh no, I love it all, man. Yeah, these I just did like some of these guys are on my buy low things I'm
Mhm.
looking at here. Nick Schmaltz, especially, damn, like I'm really big on that player. 37% is just much too low for him. Josh Norris too. I mean, 48%. We're getting a little chintzy here, but should definitely be rostered much more than that. And how about Robert Thomas? His name was Robert Thomas. You got that kind of love on houses. Shall we do? That's the worst Robert Thomas impression of all time. Book it. Yeah, no, I'm into all this. I like Marchenko. I'm low key interested in Marchenko too. I'm interested to see what he does this week.
All right, let's talk about the defense then. I have Minchikov at the top of the list right now. Honestly, feels like he's really cementing his role at this point on the top power play. You would hope and expect that he might be able to grow into more of an even strength role as the season progresses and they start to trust him a little more. He starts to get into the NHL game a little bit more. So that's who I have there. Then Owen Power right behind him, Bowen Byram, Cam Fowler, Jared Spurgeon. Um, Byram, I just want to highlight from this list. I'm not going to go in depth on all these guys, but Byram, I do want to highlight because he hasn't had a great start to the season. Last 5 games, though, he's got a couple goals, 3 points, still averaging under 19 minutes, which isn't great, but he's third amongst all defensemen in individual scoring chances for per 60 in these last 5 games. So it seems like he's starting to feel it again. And yeah, it's Colorado, great offensive environment. It's Bowen Byram, who I honestly think is more talented offensively than a lot of other teams' best offensively talented defensemen. So, gonna hang on to my love for Bowen Byram, and he blocks and hits, and he does all that peripheral stuff. So he's always providing you something, even if he's not getting a ton of points. Sub 20% roster, Jared Spurgeon at 19%. We talked about him and his potential to come back and possibly immediately go to power play one. We'll see if that comes to fruition, but I think it's a guy that you definitely need to be watch listing. And then sub 10% rostered Eric Gustafson, who we also talked through in the news and notes section. Yeah, I think we said everything we need to. Definitely a priority ad as long as Fox is out. From this list, Blake, any favorites? Any guys you would take off the list?
No, definitely no one I would take off the list. I love Minchikov, and I like Bowen Byram over Power. Honestly, I don't know. We get a little bit of some saltiness over Bowen Byram, but it's a long season, right? We're
Yeah.
like we're 9, 10 games into the season. This guy's going to be fine. I bet he'll have 40, 50 points at the end of the year with really awesome periffs. Like I think he's trending upwards. So yeah, I'm a fan of that player.
Yeah, one thing that kept, I do just want to talk about this for 1 second. One thing that did keep Power over Byram for me, obviously the minutes Power
Yeah.
has continuously played top pair minutes basically since he entered the league. But as of late, he was never last year a guy who contributed a lot offensively, but
Mhm.
44th in shots per 60 and 36th in individual scoring chances for per 60 amongst defensemen through his last 5 games. Seems like he might be starting to, yeah, maybe unlock the next step in his evolution as an NHL defenseman. Obviously, has the pedigree as a former number one overall pick that you might think that that could be there. He's never like even going back to his college days, he's never profiled as like a massive shot generator or anything like that. So take that all with a grain of salt. But even just that little bit of a tick up to where last year he was basically not shooting at all to this year, now he's providing a little bit more of that. I do think that he can provide some even strength offense, and Buffalo can score. They haven't had a great start to the season, but it's not the worst situation either. So that was just a little bit of my personal reasoning anyway for having Power over Byram still. I'll move over to goalies to close this thing out. Elvis Merzlikins tops the list, 28% rostered. Grubauer coming back onto the list after we have a flip-flop of goalies in Seattle. He's at 32%. And then Dostal and Gibson. So it sounds like Gibson's injury is not serious and he'll be back sooner rather than later. But um, yeah, between the two, before they were just doing a straight 50%. As long as Anaheim remains hot, then you're going to be interested in whichever one of these guys is going to get the the two starts for the week. If they're playing 3 games, you can probably set your clock to the fact that they're going to rotate starts until something changes. So definitely interested in either of those guys. And as long-term plays, like, you know, I think both of these guys have upside for long term. Gibson, they've talked about moving him at some point. That probably doesn't happen until later in the season, but if he does, then both he and Dostal would get huge bumps in value. So you like that as well. And then sub 25% rostered, I threw in Jake Allen over from Montreal. And Jake Allen has been playing really well,
Yeah,
to be quite
bizarre.
honest with you.
Yep.
Quite surprisingly. Actually, all of these guys, really, if you look at just the last couple of games, which is honestly really all I look at when it comes to goalies most of the time, Allen, Grubauer, and Merzlikins, like all these guys are playing quite well at the moment. So all guys that I'm fairly interested in. Who's your favorite from this list there, Blake?
Yeah, I like Elvis. Elvis is the guy I'm targeting. I have him in a bunch of spots. Like, you know, these are your zero G staples. How to tell you did zero G in your draft? You are rostering Elvis Merzlikins and Philip Grubauer in like 4 leagues. All right. But yeah, I think I like actually. I'm big on Merzlikins and Grubauer / Decord, whoever's getting the starts there in Seattle. And then yeah, I don't trust Anaheim honestly, but Dostal has looked really good. So yeah, while they're on this heater, like yeah, this guy's good to go, and maybe they can turn this heater into some more consistent play where you're actually like, oh, this makes sense, right? Because their confidence is getting boosted big time by just winning these games, right? So yeah, it's a fun team to watch. I like Dostal there, but yeah, all good options
For sure. All right. We have to get into the next segment. That is the head-to-head streamer deathmatch.
Deathmatch.
It's not been a great run out for me so far. Yeah, maybe you should just mute me whenever I'm on and only listen to Blake. But Blake is cleaning my clock with this streamer deathmatch so far. Looks like he's gonna go 3-0. Last week he took Schmaltz and I took Sean Couturier. Couturier is now going to miss the last 2 games of the week, so he's definitely not going to catch Schmaltz at this point. But Schmaltz already had a pretty healthy lead here, 14.5, a couple points through 3 games to Couturier's 4.5 through 2 games. So was probably trending that way anyway. This week, I get the first pick, and honestly, it's not a week that I necessarily wanted to have the first pick. If I'm being quite honest, there's definitely a few different ways that I could go with this. As I mentioned, and I'll continue to mention, we're just going to be picking. We can't really factor in the off nights
Yep.
when checking the points. So just picking from the 4 games played teams for the most part here every week. And I'm going to go with Boone Jenner because there
Oh,
would be nothing
you?
sweeter than beating Blake with Boone Jenner. So Boone Jenner's the
Oh,
pick.
why would you do? I'm like, no, he wouldn't do that to me. He would never do that to me. Nate, you're on notice. All right, you're a big time on notice, buddy. You know what? If there's one week I want Boone Jenner to just go silent, it's this week here because you know what? I'm gonna have some fun. All right. I think I was actually not expecting that, so now I'm rattled and I'm just stalling. But yeah, I'm gonna just have some fun. I'm gonna take Marco Rossi. I'm gonna have a fun time this week, and hopefully that this kind of deployment continues for him. And at the very least, maybe he carves out a role on line one. You know, maybe he gets moved down to power play 2. That's fine. But line 1 with Cap and Boldy, they're going to run that. Yes, please. I think this guy could have a big week. You know, obviously he needs that deployment though.
For sure. All right. That's
Boone
all
Jenner.
that
What
we've
the?
got.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. All right, let's move on.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, I do want to take a second and plug Discord real quick. Check the show description, click the link, join the Apples and Junos Discord server. You'll find tons of other people talking fantasy hockey all day and all night in there. Also, if you need a little bit more hands-on help with your team or your roster, or you just have some questions that you need answered, you can check out the Apples and Junos Patreon, also in the show description. Just for a small monthly fee, you can get some guaranteed answers to all your fantasy hockey questions, some team reviews if you go up a tier as well. And I also want to remember to take a second and plug the 18 Skaters daily summaries that are going up every single day on the Apples and Gianos website. Mark Barber has done a terrific job with generating all this info for us, and he's posting that on Twitter. So make sure you go and get it from the site, and don't get it from people who are copying his content and posting it on Twitter under their own names. So do it the right way. Go get it from Mark Barber himself. While you're here, if you could like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, or rate the pod if you are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts, wherever you're at, if you would be so kind as to do that, that really does, like, it's the number one way you can help us out, really, in the most practical sense, is to rate the pod, get us some sweet reviews, whatever we can get. We want to see that. We want to see the feedback, even if the feedback isn't perfect all the time. We want to see that feedback.
No,
so,
Nate, no, that's not true, Nate. No, only good feedback, please. All right, come on, help us out. I'm sensitive.
5 stars, but you can tell us what you would like to improve. That would be fine by me anyway. We had 3 more reviews since the last time we talked about it, so I do want to throw that in there. We had one from Boom, and then it's just a whole bunch of numbers. Hey guys, love the content, listen to it every week to help me in my pool. Did have some feedback about the sound quality being poor, and I think that must have been a one-off. I know I've had an issue in one of my mics in one of these, so I'm wondering if it was from that episode, but I think overall we're doing okay there. Great pod from Daniel Huff 607. Thanks for giving me great insight and making me laugh every podcast. Never change, Blake. Love your takes. Thanks, guys. I'd love to see that. And then, actually, we got 2 more. Oh man, these are coming in hot and heavy. Apple Podcasts
hot
stepping
and heavy.
up.
Yep,
You love to see it. They're really trying to chase down the lead that the Spotify crew have built over them. So we love to see that. W. Cressman says, absolute best fantasy hockey podcast. Great content, deep dives, good format, excellent. Blake, don't listen to the haters. You cracked me up, buddy. Keep up it is actually what he said. I believe he meant to say keep it up. And then the last is titled Cream of the Crop. And this is submitted by Ground Beef. Says, love the chemistry between Nate and Blake. Great balance between nerdy analysis and passionate instincts. I'm not sure which one of us this person could be talking about, but
that's a mystery.
Said, I'm always excited to download new episodes. So thanks for those reviews. We really do appreciate that. It makes a big difference to us. We love the feedback, but that's going to be all we've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value. Helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band. They're there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.